Now that I've finished season 3 of Bridgerton, I've seen a lot of people, not this commenter, who seem vaguely upset about the reveal at the end of season 3, where there is a gender swap of a major love interest for a future season. And I think this adds to the wider conversation about how much adaptations should change from the original source material, but more importantly, whether or not changes made to an adaptation are better and for the better. And I spoke about this briefly with the new Percy Jackson series, but I think it's even more prevalent and even more obvious with Bridgerton. The Bridgerton books are essentially standalone novels within themselves. They don't have many side plots and they are essentially just focusing on the main love interests. But with TV shows, it is much harder to achieve this and to achieve a continued audience when your characters are the same for each season, but your focus drifts between the two. Shows like Black Mirror are able to have completely different episodes because they are absolutely detached from each other, but the themes are the same. But the characters and the plots are all completely different. Whereas Bridgerton has reoccurring characters, and it has reoccurring themes, and it has reoccurring plots that you see time and time again. And so it's much harder to keep an engaged audience if you don't have some sort of follow through. And so Bridgerton became an ensemble show that shows multiple storylines, and this opened up the opportunity to have multiple different stories being represented that weren't in the books originally. One of the things I think Julia Quinn said about the show was that she wanted to be able to showcase all types of love, and that shouldn't be limited to just heterosexual, stable, conformist relationships. The message I got from season 3, and the message I think a lot of people got from season 3, was that everyone deserves to be heard and to stand up for themselves and to find themselves in the world. And if Bridgerton is putting out a message like that, then it only makes sense that they give the opportunity for everyone to see themselves represented in that. And with that, the reveal of John's cousin at the end was so delightful. Because one, it was really nice to have some confirmed queer representation in the main characters and the main love interest storylines, along with Benedict's storyline, which was also quite interesting. But two, it's also one of the few cases where if they do follow Francesca's storyline, I think that this queer love story within the universe that Bridgerton has created could actually have a happy ending. I loved Francesca's book. I adored Michael in Francesca's book. And honestly, if I wanted to read their story beat for beat again, I would just reread the book. But I'm not going to pretend that this gender swap was a sacrifice that the show made. There are many parts of the books that I adore, but I would give them all up 1,000 times over to gain what the show has to offer. So if losing elements of Michael and Francesca's love story means gaining elements in Francesca and Michaela's love story, that's not a loss. Michael and Francesca still exist. You can still go and read the books. But this means that we have the chance to tell a different type of love story that could potentially still end happily. And more importantly, it means that there could be a young queer girl out there, or even an older queer woman, who's watching the show and never really feels heard or represented and finally gets to see herself. And that will never be a loss.